Washington Post political reporter Ed O'Keefe is in Washington. So, Ed, what do you make of this war of words between Mr. Trump and Congressman Lewis?
Well, it's notable for sure, just given Lewis's stature on Capitol Hill. Very few other members have achieved what essentially is iconic status. They don't exactly part the hallways when he comes walking through, but people know when he's around and have great respect for him. I sense here that Lewis knew what he was doing in saying this and is, in essence, trying to provide a little political air cover to his colleagues, both across the Democratic Party, but more specifically on Capitol Hill, trying to show them that, you know, this is perhaps the way we should consider comporting ourselves in the coming months and years as Trump takes office. Remember, Lewis was part of the group that orchestrated that sit-in on the floor of the House of Representatives over the summer to protest the lack of work on gun control. Here he is again dramatically calling out the legitimacy of the new president. I think he's sort of trying to lay it out for his younger colleagues who may be frustrated by their minority status, at least in the House, and say, look, speaking out, taking steps on your own that are dramatic can sometimes have a big effect. Trump's response is no surprise. If you're a detractor, no matter who you are, the Pope or John Lewis, you're going to get attacked, and that's what he's been doing this weekend.
Well, Ed, do you think with respect to the Russian hacking, does Mr. Trump need to go further and fully get behind the investigations into Russia amid all of these allegations that have been swirling about?
It wouldn't hurt to say at least that members of your administration are going to cooperate with the investigation, should he be asked that. But obviously he thinks that the government and the country should move on from this and on to other things. I think part of the issue here, too, is that basically if you want it to be, any member of Congress at this point is pretty much read in on the details of what's going on here. And I think the fact that we've seen the Senate Intelligence Committee in the last few days say that it's going to undertake a bigger investigation, and you've seen so many Democrats call for the head of the FBI director, Jim Comey. It's just they've all now seen what the intelligence community was seeing and what they shared with the president and the president-elect, and they're concerned about it, and they want it to be investigated further and eventually at least some of it be brought to public light.
Meantime, Ed, more confirmation hearings are scheduled this week. A few of the more controversial include Education Secretary nominee Betsy DeVos, Trump's nominee to head the Environmental Protection Agency, Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt, and Energy Department nominee Rick Perry. What are you going to be keeping an eye on at this week's hearings? The
DeVos hearing for sure is one to watch. There's big concern not only about the fact that she has essentially called for stripping away the powers of the Education Department that she would be tasked with leading, at least some of those powers, but also some concerns about her paperwork and her past and whether her vast wealth has been properly probed by federal ethics watchdogs and by lawmakers, whether they've had enough time. There's some questions about campaign donations she was making to a PAC she had established. There was revelations that one of my colleagues at the Post reported on over the weekend that she had failed to report about $125,000 in contributions. The transition team acknowledged that. So Democrats are going to go after her not only for her personal and professional background and what she may or may not have told the ethics watchdogs that look into her, but also going to raise concerns about her stance on education policy. She's a charter school advocate. She's raised big questions about the viability of public education in this country, which, of course, is a bedrock principle for Democrats. They'll go after her. Scott Pruitt is one that Democrats just don't like on a policy basis, frankly. He has sued the EPA in the past on behalf of Oklahoma and other Republican-led states, and is someone that is seen as a little too cozy with the energy industry that he would be essentially tasked with regulating. But ultimately, he's likely to get confirmed. The one to watch, though, to me, continues to be Betsy DeVos. And look, there are still some lingering questions about whether all Republicans are going to back Rex Tillerson. Marco Rubio's holding out on him, at least so far. He's done this kind of thing before, where he draws a little attention for raising concerns, and he may ultimately come around. But if Rubio holds out and a few others, Republicans only have 52 votes in the Senate. You only need 51 to get confirmed. If a few of them are holding out, that could spell trouble.
Well, finally, Ed, there's a report from Esquire that the Trump administration is considering moving the press briefing room from its current location within the West Wing, within the White House. What more do we know about this, and what could the implications be if, in fact, that's something that happens?
Well, based on by comments this morning by the Vice President-elect, by Reince Priebus, the incoming Chief of Staff, it sounds like it's a more logistical issue than retribution to the press. Elaine, you spent a lot of time working there in that office, and you know there's very little elbow room. Yeah. And I think part of the problem is they are anticipating a crush of reporters from across the country and around the world who want to at least attend the daily briefing. There's a larger auditorium at the old Executive Office Building, or the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, right next door to the White House, and it looks like they may at least initially try to use that room for the public televised briefing. But of course, what's also not yet known is whether or not they may even hold televised briefings every day. It may just be a few days a week, or maybe once a week. We'll see, and that is what I think reporters are going to be more concerned about, is the idea of having at least answers given to questions and access to people like the press secretary and other White House officials, whether that's held in an auditorium across the street or in the tiny little briefing room there just down the hall from the Oval Office, remains to be seen. Ultimately, it's just access in general, sharing information, answering questions, being transparent, not hiding things from the general public, that ultimately news organizations are going to be more concerned about.
That's right. Access on behalf of the American people.
Exactly.
Ed O'Keefe in Washington. Ed, thank you.
Take care.